My neighbor thought my detached garage was her personal parking spot, so I had the whole thing dismantled and hauled away while she was on vacation. The look on her face when she returned was absolutely priceless. Pure, uncomprehending shock, followed by a volcanic eruption of entitlement. But let me rewind. I'm Leo. I live in a charming, slightly quirky neighborhood with one persistent flaw. Diane, the self-appointed mayor of our street. My property came with an old standalone garage at the back of the lot. I used it for storage and projects. Diane, who lived 3 houses down, decided it was the perfect overflow parking for her endless stream of guests and her second car. It started innocuously. "Oh, Leo, mind if my sister parks in there just for tonight? The street is so crowded." Being a decent person, I said yes. That was my first mistake. Just for tonight became a weekly ritual. Then I'd come home to find a car already in there. A note slipped under my door. "Thanks for letting me use the space. Diane." She wasn't asking anymore. She was informing. I confronted her, politely at first. "Diane, I need my garage accessible. Please ask me from now on." She offered a tight, dismissive smile. "Leo, don't be so territorial. We're a community. It's just a rusty old shed." I put a lock on the door. She complained to other neighbors that I was being hostile. The final straw came when I returned from a weekend trip to the Bahamas to find her nephew's truck parked inside, the lock clearly tampered with. A note on my kitchen window read, "Needed urgent storage. Will move it Monday." That was it. Asking and locking had failed. It was time for a more permanent solution. I called the city to check permits. Since the structure was on my property and over 50 years old, I could demolish it without issue. Next, I called the salvage company. The foreman came out, looked at the corrugated metal and timber frame, and made me an offer. "We'll take it all down, clear the slab, and give you cash for the materials. When do you want it gone?" I said, "How about next Tuesday?" Diane was leaving for a 10-day cruise to the Bahamas that weekend. The cruise showed up at dawn. By lunchtime, the garage was a pile of sorted lumber and metal. By evening, the trucks had hauled it all away, leaving nothing but a clean, empty concrete pad. It looked strangely spacious. I swept it clean and parked my own car right in the center. The neighborhood was abuzz. People asked what happened. I just smiled. Needed an update. Diane's return was glorious. I was watering my plants when her SUV pulled up. She did a double take, then a triple take. She got out of her car and just stared at the vacant spot where the garage had stood for decades. Her mouth hung open. She stormed over. "Leo, where's the garage?" "Gone," I said, turning off the hose. "Gone? What do you mean, gone? My niece's car was in there." "No," I corrected her. "Your niece's car was on my property, inside my structure, without my permission. That structure no longer exists." Her face cycled through confusion, rage, and sheer panic. "You had no right. That was community storage. Where am I supposed to tell people to park now?" I shrugged. "I'd suggest your own driveway, or the public street. You know, places people normally park." She sputtered, threatening to sue, to get me fined, to call the HOA, which, by the way, we don't even have. She demanded I pay to rebuild it. I simply went inside and returned with a folder. Inside was a timeline, photos of her cars in my garage, copies of the notes she had left, a statement from the locksmith about the broken lock, the city demolition permit, and the bill of sale from the salvage company. "You've been trespassing for months, Diane." This was the polite way to make it stop. She called the police. A very bored officer listened to her hysterical claim that I had stolen her parking space by destroying my own building. He reviewed my folder, looked at the empty slab, and told her politely but firmly that no crime had been committed. He suggested she cease using other people's property. The fallout was delicious. Her social capital on the block evaporated. Neighbors who were mildly annoyed by my stinginess now saw her for the entitled moocher she was. Without my garage to use as a free parking annex, her constant stream of guests became a visible nuisance on the street, turning the quiet disapproval of others into open irritation. She avoided me for weeks. The empty slab stayed empty. I eventually built a nice pergola and patio on it, a place to actually relax. Every time I sit out there with a drink, I remember the look on her face. If you enjoy a story where a clever, permanent solution defeats chronic entitlement, show your appreciation. Hit that like button, and for more tales of ingenious comebacks, subscribe